that part of the agenda, we were told, was that now the report has been released to us and people should run with it. Unfortunately, it seems that only the politicians are running with it. Unless otherwise, I have not seen civil society, for example, in forums talking about the report. I have not seen the faith-based organizations, for example, the wider civil society, talking about this report because it was given to us to talk about it. I have not seen the media, as we saw in other cases, where they have experts who come, read sections of the report, analyze it and talk about it. I've not seen them doing that. It is only the politicians, and so far it had largely been one side of the political divide that has been making efforts to go out there and do what politicians do in the way that politicians do. I would have expected that more political forums would have been going out to talk about it. We saw, for example, in Kakamega, that a memorandum was presented by one of the politicians who said they had had a meeting with the Kenyans a few days before, and he presented the memorandum of what Kenyans had said. I would have expected more of that, of other politicians who perhaps were not able to call as big a rally as some have, to call the people to the size that they're able to handle. So I don't, I'm still quite flustered by the discussion going around BBI, because I think that we are allowing ourselves to lose their agenda. There should be more forums where people are talking about this report as we wait for the technical team, if it will be technical, coming back to collect these views and receive opinions from the various actors. If we focus too much on only what one person is doing or one group is doing, I think that we are losing, we are dropping the ball. Okay. We are dropping the ball as a country, and this is an opportunity. I had a forum to discuss with one of the relatively new commissions that have come in place when they were having the induction workshop. And one of the things that I was telling them in that forum was that BBI is not something that you can allow to go. It is something that you must engage with. It is just the same way for years we had the constitutional making process going on, and everybody wanted a piece of it, and there was a lot of things going on in various forums to ensure that you will see a bit of what your interest is portrayed in the final document. And if you miss that boat, then you miss it. Right. And you allow people to run away with the agenda. So I'm hoping that now that I was actually laughing my head off when I saw Murkomen and his team stand there. I said, well, that is 10-0 to the other side, and say that they will be attending the Mombasa rally. If they have decided that they may not want to do their own rallies and attend that, I'm looking forward to see how they will be allowed, if at all, to present their memorandum or their opinions or their views, or if they will have those views that they will want to present, or they will want to talk politics. Right.
There's an interesting development even on that when you talk about the fact that this is in the in the Standard rather, Uhuru to lead Mount Kenya BBI rallies. Do you think these ones will have a different tone and tenor, seeing that it's the commander-in-chief, the party leader who will be leading this particular one?
He already set the tone. I think he already set the tone when he met with governors the other day, and part of the agenda was the talk of BBI. He set the tone again when he had the address, when he appointed new CSs and CASs and other and reshuffled others in Mombasa. When he started off is by talking about the political divide that we have as a nation, and then had other things that he covered in the middle, and concluded by talking about BBI and what he felt BBI was able to do. So he has already started the ball rolling. Right. So I think that making it look like this will be the first is a bit twisted. But the truth is that he's already started the conversation. He's already laying the groundwork for it, and I think it will be a good thing.
When we go to this particular phase of these rallies, do you think they will be different in terms of what we've seen before? There will be a bit more order. It will be now addressing the issues that should be addressed in these particular forums in terms of BBI rallies in Mount Kenya, now that he will be there?
Two things to say. Number one, I think that things will not change in terms of the types of rallies that are being held, because what we see now is not the kind of town hall education, further sensitization, gathering of views. This is a popularization agenda. So BBI is not BBI anymore, it's politics. And maybe BBI was always about politics, and this Trojan horse called this report was just the nice soft thing to allow Kenyans to feel that they have been adequately involved and that they have engaged and participated. But ultimately it's about politics. So I don't think anything will change. The popularization, the politics, the push for 2022 will continue to be the undertone of these popularization campaigns. And I think that's putting the cart before the horse, because how many Kenyans have actually read the BBI report? I have, but and it's a long document. How do you break it down? How do you make it possible for somebody to understand what BBI means in 10, 12, 15 or 20 pages? Has this been summarized? It's deliberate. Have copies been distributed? Imagine when we were voting for the Constitution 2010, if nobody had any idea what this Constitution was all about. So I feel it's a deliberate move to keep Kenyans in the dark, and then BBI just sounds like something into a BBI. You don't even know what, even when you look at the memes and the acronyms, it's BBI, it's BB, nobody knows what it is, and that is deliberate. Number two, President Uhuru Kenyatta having massive troubles in his backyard. No matter how he tries to camouflage or behave as though he's in charge. This is why, during his speech at the coast that you referenced earlier on, Jeff, this is why he released money for coffee farmers. This is why he was releasing money, because he is in trouble. And of course, Akina Kiunjuri will say it's because we put pressure and he was then forced to act. Why didn't he talk about sugar at great length, or fisheries, the blue economy? Why didn't he delve deeply into that? Why isn't he looking at maize farmers? He was looking at Central because he's trying to reconsolidate his position. No matter what Kieleweke tries to say, he has been very much rattled in his backyard. And this is part of what contributes to a lame duck situation. So that he's even having to discuss, imagine Raila Amolo Odinga having to discuss unity in his backyard. That is a foregone conclusion. So the very fact that President Uhuru Kenyatta, I would give people from Central Kenya, thumbs up for being as democratic as they are, to actually call the president out and say, hatuko pamoja, when you talk about all these things. So good luck to President Uhuru Kenyatta as he does his best to consolidate his backyard. And yeah, but these are all the makings of a lame duck president.
We have a couple of WhatsApp messages coming in right there. If I come to you, Ben, you can just look at them in just a bit. You can have them up on screen. There we go. Morning, good people. The BBI rallies are ill-intended with a motive of building some profiles towards 2022, but nothing to do with the local mananchi. While they intended on the latter, we wouldn't see these pomp and color rallies where nothing of substance in relation to BBI and what it offers is discussed. BBI discussions need not be done by politicians, but the technocrats. That's one WhatsApp message. Another one, this BBI thing is not about national unity at all. It looks like a political party. Yesterday, an ODM member welcomed Tanga to come and follow the rules of their house. And in the other, they preach about uniting Kenyans through a national BBI. Big question being asked right there. Morning, K24, kudos for the show. I think BBI is just but political survival for the big boys. How comes they're using public funds, yet it's only one side of Kieleweke team? That's Charles from Eldoret asking that particular question. Do we have another WhatsApp message? No, we don't. Keep them coming in at K24 TV right there. Even as you talk about that, you have... There's a message from Jacoyo Midio. Oh, there's a message from Jacoyo. This is the responsibility of politicians. Article 1 of the Constitution, it is a political document. Jacoyo, you can also text me. I don't know why. Okay, but it's okay. I won't ask any questions, but thank you, Jacoyo is also watching. Thanks for that. Let me come to you, Ben, on that, because even as it talks about this being a political document, the steering committee is supposed to be in Mombasa before this particular rally, but it seems like their presence, their mandate there is going to be immensely overshadowed by the politics of the day. How does the steering committee, for lack of a better word, take back the steering wheel in this particular process? Because it seems the politicians have taken it and run with it, and they are second in command on this particular project.
Well, you see, the steering committee could essentially be just a technical team that is supposed to oversee the research that is supposed to be undertaken, putting together the data that they collect and come up with a report or recommendations that reflect what they were told on the ground. But ultimately, politicians will definitely ride on that, because you can imagine look at it now realistically. You can imagine if it was somebody like Paul Mwangi, the lawyer, who is supposed to invite people to a discussion or go hold a town hall with the people of Mombasa. Even people will never know whether that exists. But if Governor Joho is the one who has invited people, or you understand, then there are now the realities on the ground we cannot ignore. But I first want also to mention the issue of the president leading these meetings in the Mount Kenya backyard. And I want to agree with Jerotich. She says that it's a good thing that actually the ground has really shifted and the people have been categorical with the president. Well, you are one of us and all those things, well and good. But what have we been able to achieve? And my take is, instead of all these funny and fancy headlines we keep waking up to that don't add up to anything. The other day we saw there was a headline about Mr. Bombastic, and when you read the story about the Nairobi governor, there was no content in terms of trying to excite the public. My take would be, the president is under duress or under stress because we have borrowed under him 6 trillion shillings. Right now I'm reading that there is a report by the IMF indicating that Kenya requires an extra 1 trillion shillings to be able to complete at least some of the projects that have been started by this administration. My question would be, if I were to drive from the farthest north point of Kenya in Turkana all the way to Lamu, what do we have to show for the 6 trillion shillings? That is the question the people of central Kenya are asking the president. What do we have to show for the 7 years, 8 years now that you have been in office? And if indeed Kenyans would take the cue and focus on that nature of conversations, forget about these newspapers and forget about these reports, because reports have never changed this country. We have reports that run back up to 1960. But if we were to demand accountability, and it's a good thing the people of central Kenya that have been christened the Turakus are waking up to the realities that it is not essentially that having one of your own there that will translate to anything. Baringo has had a president for 24 years and it is one of the counties that remains poor, and we have continued to supply relief food every year for the last 50 years. So this is the kind of conversations now Kenyans need to have, so that even when these leaders arrive in Mombasa, or when they come to Nairobi, or when they go to any other part of this country, we need answers now, because we only have 2 years. What have we achieved? These people who are threatening one another, whether Murkomens want to join BBI or whether Junet wants Murkomen not to be a part of BBI, those are irrelevancies. What we need are people now interrogating critically, because 6 trillion shillings is a lot of money, by any standard. True. We actually, every Kenyan by this hour should be able to feel that actually this is what we've been able to achieve. But when you look at, actually there's a report that was just launched by the Ministry of Health, that 94% of our hospitals actually lack basic amenities. Yet we have had scandals like Mafia House and many other things. Then you realize actually we have too many wrong priorities, and Kenyans now need really to begin to demand accountability. And that's a segue to where we'll be going to as we talk about the state of healthcare in the country. But before we do that, we have a couple of more WhatsApp messages we ought to look at. There we go. The division we have in Jubilee is not caused by a handshake but leadership in the party. President Kenyatta should stamp his authority. Look at Raila's ODM party. He is in charge. That's that take right there. Team Tangatanga have realized they are becoming obsolete. BBI is the way to go. To anyone not embracing it will be smashed in 2022. That's another message. And we have one more right there. If you could scroll down a bit. Good morning. The fact is that this is not building bridges. It's about greedy Kenyan politicians. Now that they can't see a way of retaining or getting power, they want to use the back door. Shame on them. Me as a Kenyan right now, I don't care about which tribe leads Kenya if the leader is truly accountable and responsible. Kenyans, let's just say no to this ill-fated BBI. I wish His Excellency Ruto could just lead us in rejecting this. We are many here on the ground. Okay, keep those WhatsApp messages coming in. Of course, the number is still at the bottom of your screen, and of course, a segue that has been provided right there. We talk about the state of healthcare in the country. This was also brought to the fore after one Kenyan on Twitter exposed WhatsApp messages from a private hospital with the regard that they have in terms of their patients and the numbers. They're actually given targets.
as to how many are supposed to come in. Why didn't we have 14 admitted instead of the 12 that were put in? And you talk about the Ministry of Health report in terms of just the abysmal conditions in hospitals right now. This is part of the Big Four agenda when you talk about healthcare. We've had universal health coverage being something, they piloted it in 4 counties. It's supposed to be rolled out this year to the entire country. How do we resolve this particular issue? Because it's been back and forth, back and forth. The rhetoric is there, but on the ground, if you got sick now, the last place you'd want to visit is government hospitals. If you had the chance, everybody would try and go elsewhere. How do you remedy this one basic right and need, Jero?
The last place I'd also want to visit is a private hospital as well. So we are between a rock and a hard place as citizens, whether you have the money or not. The public hospitals are so woefully undermanaged, underserved, underserviced. It is a complete travesty, and I will get to why I think it is such a travesty. If you go to the private clinics, private in quotes, because so long as you're not a public, you're private, whether it's full of quacks, whether it's full of targets that must be reached as if it's a sales and marketing company, etc., etc. This is a byproduct of the collapse of the healthcare system in Kenya. And why? And these are some of the things when you break it down into down to very basic bites for Kenyans to understand. It boils down to theft in Ministry of Health. When you think of the cartels in Mafia House that have stolen billions upon billions of shillings, that could have gone towards essential drugs, that could have gone towards refurbishing public clinics in the most remote areas and all the way down to our main referral hospital, Kenyatta National Hospital. Monies have disappeared into the pockets of people with impunity. You look at the medical equipment scheme, the billions of shillings that were forcibly shoved down the throats of governors, and they now have to pay for the maintenance of this equipment, that most of this equipment is not even being adequately utilized at county level. You look at that medical equipment scheme. Inside there is the HCIT scheme, which is seen to be an integral part of the delivery of the health aspect of the Big Four agenda. You look at it, it's 4.9 billion shillings. And the Ministry of Health cancelled the tender. And now 7Cs, which is part of that 4.9 billion, or which is the owner of this, or the winner of this HCIT contract, is in court, saying you will pay penalties even if you cancel the contract. What does this tell you? It tells you that even when a ministry deems your contract as having been irregularly issued to you to the tune of 4.9 billion, you can still seek damages. You can still seek penalties. This is crony capitalism in action. And so long as there's conflict of interest and theft within Ministry of Health, you will see a proliferation of these private clinics that are targets-based. Even the main hospitals, OA's thread, which I thought was absolutely excellent. I've been reading since last week he's been touching on what is actually happening. Even Aga Khan Hospital, even Nairobi Hospital, even the so-called well-reputed private hospitals have targets, and they're asking inordinate amounts of money, either through insurance companies or private. This is why harambes are going on every single day to get people out of hospital. If all 4 of us ended up in hospital today and our insurance was exhausted, assuming we have health insurance, soon we'll start having changos. So it is not, even the so-called middle-class Kenyans are not exempt from the type of crisis that we are facing right now in the health system. And so long as we don't tackle the theft that is ongoing, it will continue like that. I have older children in high school, about to finish high school, and then I had a baby about a year and a half or so ago. I was almost bankrupted by the process of having this baby. And you think about how expensive it is. And if you cannot afford it, then you go to Pumwani and your baby is stolen. That's a whole other story that the Commission for Administrative Justice is also looking into. Either it's baby stealing syndicates, or you're paying an arm and a leg and you're in debt for the next X number of years. By the time your child is in standard 2 or standard 3, you're still paying off the hospital bill. So we have a crisis. Education, health, energy. This country is falling apart, and the road shows, the patriarchal road shows of BBI are ongoing, and Kenyans are not able to rise up enough together as a collective to say, we want development. We don't want your politics of BBI.
Lily, I'll come to you on this, because we're coming from this at a point of view where this should really be the key focus, especially in this term of the presidency. If you picked 4 issues to deal with, this should really be dealt with, but still as they say, vitu kwa ground, totally different as far as it's concerned. How does he rein in on this? Because they also look at it from a point of view where even the theft that we're talking about and the misappropriation of funds, it was called a mafia house, still hasn't been brought to book. The mobile containers were since even moved from Mombasa, they were taken elsewhere. We forgot that particular story and moved on. How do we sort out this issue from the Ministry of Health?
Earlier on, Chero gave us an example of people in a boxing fight and said there's a time when you're beaten and you're bloody and you're about to collapse. I think for me, largely I'm at that stage when it comes to Kenya and the way forward. Because the only way to help with the issue of health is to improve the public health sector so that we can rein in the private health sector when they see that people, when they begin luring clients, so to speak, or patients to come there. But do we have the money to do this? I'm just looking at the Business Daily today, and they talk about this Public Debt Management Office and how it will be better resourced and is going to be an improvement from the former department. And we know that our debt, as it stands right now, is unmanageable. Where are you going to get? We are struggling to get money to pay those debts. We have no money to cater for recurrent expenditures because we are catering for the debts. There's even thinking about development or improving any sector, whether it is health or whatever, is a tall order, is beyond a tall order. How then are we going to do that? It becomes an impossible question unless or until we manage our issues better. And I think that the only way that we are going to do that is if we rein in corruption, because we have been given statistics of monies that have been lost to corruption deals in the last so many years. And if we were able to get that money and perhaps apply it to something else, right now we've been talking about students reporting to school in Form 1, and people have been saying, we've been seeing the problems they've been going through, and we've been told the amount of monies that were lost in various sectors, and how many schools that would have built, and how many children that would have paid fees for. So I think that the biggest legacy that President Uhuru can give us is if really he does rein in corruption. And if it is not corruption that is seen to be targeted, but anyone who seems to be dealing with corruption is reined in, and then we see the money coming back, and maybe then we will be revamped as a society.
As far as the CSS are concerned in health, it seems to be reshuffled on that particular one. So even some questions like on the medical equipment scheme, that now will have to start again afresh because now there's somebody new at the helm. How do you deal with this problem where today it's Ben who's at the seat, he leaves, Jero gets in there, Jero doesn't know what Ben did as CS. So we're revolving around the same story, but money is still being lost and Kenyans are still suffering, especially in the health sector.
You realize the ultimate measure of any society is their education, their health, and their security. Because these are the critical functions that really decide or determine what nature of a society we come up with. Unfortunately, as a country, and this did not just start 2 or 3 or 5 years ago, for a very long time, we completely ignored our health, our education, and our security. This gave birth to the commercialization of these critical functions that are supposed to be the duty of the state. The reason we have a crisis now of so many young children unable to report to school is because we have ignored public education for so long. We have been saying that we are investing, but in reality that is not what we have on the ground. About healthcare, I mean, if you look at the budget provision for the Ministry of Health this particular financial year, if I'm not wrong, the estimates were in excess of 200 billion shillings. In the security sector is also receiving in excess of the same amounts for this financial year, ending in the next 6 months. When you look at education, actually education gets the chunk in excess of 400 billion shillings. So where does this 400 billion shillings go, where we cannot afford to educate 1 million kids who completed their KCPE and who only need 30 to 50,000 shillings to be taken to school per year? The challenge is actually that we are not able to address the realities. Like as I indicated the other day, the president retained a lot of people who are going to be a liability to his legacy by 2022. because there are evident cases of incompetence and lack of interest in terms of actually delivering services to the people. As you indicated, like the medical leasing scheme, it has been in the discussion from the Senate with the Council of Governors and all other quarters for over 4 years now, 4 or 5 years now. Yet there is nothing specific to show that we are making any headways. Ultimately, until and unless we take drastic measures, and this is where my challenge would go, especially to these politicians from Akina Junet to Akina Murkomen and all these individuals. Instead of this too much tough talk about nothing, if Parliament would just sit down and do 5% of what they are supposed to do and checking the executive. Believe me, in this country, in the next 2 years, we can completely reform healthcare. It is not so expensive. We have seen cases whereby, like in Makueni, you saw Professor Kibwana build a hospital at a cost of 136 million shillings. Yet somebody wanted to renovate or upgrade the Mote Teaching Referral Hospital at a cost of 28 billion shillings. Unless we are importing kidneys and building that hospital with blood and flesh, there is no way a hospital can cost 28 billion shillings. Right. We have seen actually the upgrade in Nairobi, Governor Sonko Pumwani Maternity, which was a death trap. Actually, if you'll be surprised, the numbers are currently being treated, or the mothers who are going to Pumwani per day, it is doing an average of 50 to 100 baths every day with very few, because the facilities have improved, and also the motivation. So the idea is we just need individuals who are genuinely interested in doing what they are elected to do or what they are appointed to do, and we'll never have a problem. Okay. But as long as we have people like in Kirinyaga, we saw the dilapidation of the hospital, the Kirinyaga hospital. Yet the governor is very busy with BBI. That BBI is not going to treat the sick people of Kirinyaga. Right. What we need are actually people to sit down and do exactly what they are elected to do. Okay. Yes.
We are winding up on the show. We have 2 minutes left, but I wanted us to touch on this story. So briefly, 30 seconds each. On the front page of the Standard, he's called the ultimate power broker. In the Star, it's a life and times of Njonjo, who turns 100 today, known also as the Duke of Kabeteshev. Your most vivid memory or thought of this particular man on his birthday today? Good or bad? 30 seconds.
No, my most interesting moment was a meeting I had with Sir Charles. That was back, I think, in 2012. And he was then still in his 90s. And I was impressed, actually, by how fine his memory still was, and how he had a good grasp of issues. And one of the key things that Sir Charles has been very passionate about is challenging young people to really take up their place. They did their part. And believe me, to live 100 years is a very long time. But they did their part in the best way they knew then. Okay. It is the responsibility of us, the younger generation, because granted, I have more than 60 years to go to reach that age. Okay. Yes. So
memory on Sir Charles?
Well, a very happy birthday to Sir Charles Njonjo. My vivid memories of him is his being the ultimate Anglophile. I mean, and the fact that he really believed that colonial rules should have been extended in Africa. So there's always been that feeling that, you know, if he had half a chance, we would not be governing ourselves. But I also find it quite interesting how from saving President Moi's presidency after the death of the late President Jomo Kenyatta, he went to a point that actually President Moi engineered his own downfall. So he was eaten by the same system that he propped up. So it's interesting to see his life and times. But he is a consummate politician in terms of, even though he was never, you know, in active politics, but he is consummate in his ability to communicate things to people. But hey, happy birthday to him, and I think he has a checkered past, and long may he live to continue genuflecting to the empire that where the sun never sets, and so on and so forth.
Millie, your memory of Sir Charles?
I think that one of the things that we learned from Sir Charles's life and profession or career is the fact that you can be built by the media, and the same media in one day can actually bring you down, because he was profiled largely by the media, which created him as this ultimate power broker. I'm glad that the story is still coming on now, even when he's 100 years. And then at the point when his career was being hit the most, again, he was at the headlines of the media. Because when you're in public sector, you're in front when you're doing well and when you're doing worse. So then again, his downfall was given a lot of publicity, even then. Okay. And of course, that makes it bigger, look bigger than it is.
Okay, that's why we'll leave it as far as it's concerned. That's why we wind the curtains as far as K24 this morning's newspaper review is concerned. Ben Mulwa, thank you so much for making time this morning. Asante sana. Jerotich, Seii, thank you so much. As well, Lwanga, thank you so much for making time this morning. Jacoyo, I have seen your text, so I think you just made sure to text everybody so that I can see it. Thank you so much for watching as well, Jacoyo Video from Kisumu. Asante sana. We'd love your feedback as well. Keep it coming in at K24 TV. You can tweet us right there. We take a short break. We're back on the other side as we get interactive. Good morning.
Now we kick off with the interactive segment.